is Chico Resch. You are listening to the Let's Go Devils podcast on the Primetime Radio Network.
Happy Devils Saturday. This is Game Day Live. Coming to you live from the Primetime Radio studios in beautiful New Jersey, The Bunker, and Chicago, Illinois, also known as the Parise clan at The Bunker with the all other Parises. Zach Parise? Is that your cousin, Vinnie? I don't know. I'm your host, Sam Wu, here with Vinnie Parise at pucksandpitchforks.com. Streaming live on Facebook Live, YouTube Live, Twitter Live, and Twitch on the Let's Go Devils Network as the Devils are going to be buzzing for a dozen straight wins. Hello, Vinnie. It's a big day.
Hello, Sam. Yeah, it is a big day. Zach is taking a nap in the other room, so I'm not going to bother him right now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's a great time. I mean, I was looking over this list of like things that were trending the last time the Devils won 11 straight games, and like The Sopranos were still airing on TV. Bad Day by Daniel Powder was still the number one song on the Billboard charts. Twitter wasn't available to the public. You had to, be a part of some, I forget, it was like a business or something you had to be a part of for Twitter, because I know Facebook you had to go to a university, but yeah. Twitter was something else. And all that was still going on the last time this happened. I mean, I believe I was like 12 years old. So it's been a long time since they've been this good in the regular season, at least for a 3-week stretch. And October 24th is the last time they lost, something like that. So it's been interesting. And they've won a lot of different kinds of ways. It's not like they're just, some of these comeback wins or anything like that. Like they had a tight game with the Maple Leafs. They had a 1-0 victory over the Avalanche. They've destroyed the bad teams they played. So it's been a little mix of everything.
A little mix of everything, but you know what? I think that's a good thing. They have a diverse portfolio of how they're beating teams. They're not spanking them all, but there's one thing they have in common is they're playing nearly 60 minutes, 65 minutes a game. And the consistency is there. That question was asked Jack Hughes for whatever reason from a reporter, and then that's where the 9-game heater came about. And now everybody's all about the heater because the Devils are hot right now. Hottest team in all professional sports. 11 straight wins. Now, the Ottawa Senators, last place team in the Atlantic Division, by no means is this going to be an automatic victory. The Senators' young team rebuilding like the Devils, maybe a little bit. I wouldn't say further. Devils are further along, but they're rebuilding, and they gave Devils some trouble back at the Rock, where the Devils needed overtime 4-3 victory in OT to beat the Senators. So I wouldn't consider this a trap game either. I think the Devils just need to come out and just play their game.
I agree. If they come out and play the way that they played the last, I'm trying to think of like bad periods that they've had in the last 11-game winning streak, because not every period has just been perfectly pristine. There was that bad period against Montreal where they gave up 15 shots. They didn't allow a goal, though, so that's always nice. The one against Washington that wasn't part of the win streak, but, every now and then you have a bad period. Each of the first periods against Calgary, one at home, one on the road, didn't love those, but you got to give a full 60-minute effort. This Ottawa Senators team gave the Boston Bruins their first loss of the season. So they're by no means peaches and cream to play against. If the Devils go in there thinking, Ottawa, they got 5 wins, we're going to smoke them for a 12th straight win, that's just not going to happen. Now you got scorers on that team. Alex DeBrincat is just starting to feel it with his new team over there in Ottawa. Tim Stützle is amazing. Brady Tkachuk. This is a good team. Claude Giroux is having a really good start to the season with them. So it is not the easiest game of all time. They have to go out there and treat it as if they're playing the Maple Leafs, as if they're playing Colorado. Would I rather them be playing a better team to try and extend it to 12? No, but it's not, no game in any sport is a gift. You have to treat it as if it's must win all the time. Otherwise you're going to get shelled because it's the NHL.
Yeah. And I'll tell you, Vinny, look, Ottawa's got some speed. They don't have the depth like the Devils. I think the Devils, again, were a little bit caught off guard the last time that they played that first period. They were able to even it up. I'm taking Ottawa seriously. That organization, in historical standpoint, has hurt the New Jersey Devils. Like back in 96, you thought the Devils, who were coming off a 95 Stanley Cup victory, the 96 Ottawa Senators on the last day of the season beat the Devils, and the Devils did not get into the playoffs after winning the Stanley Cup. And then there was that playoff series where the Devils were the number 1 seed. I believe it was back in 98, and they got knocked out of the playoffs by the Senators. I think it was 1-8, but the Devils got revenge back in 2003. Game 7, Eastern Conference Finals, was played in Ottawa, and it was a Jeff Friesen mistake and a Jeff Friesen goal that sealed the deal. And it was a magical night, and the Devils went on to win the Stanley Cup. And in 2007, if you remember that series, or was it 2000? No, it was 2007, that series, where the Ottawa Senators, last game of the Meadowlands at Continental Airlines Arena, the Senators went on to go to the Stanley Cup Finals when Daniel Alfredsson had a monster playoffs, who is now in the Hockey Hall of Fame, inducted not too long ago, a few days ago. The Devils and Senators do have some history. They really actually do have some history. And that's why I'm always kind of like paranoid with these type of games, because you would think the Devils will roll over the Senators, but I think they're a lot evenly matched than what the records are saying.
I also think, they lost Cam Talbot early in the season, and that obviously put a damper on their season. I saw Ottawa coming into the season. If you were to say, hey, Vinnie, it's September 30th. The NHL season's about to start. Rank Ottawa, Detroit, and New Jersey. I probably would have went Ottawa, Detroit, New Jersey. And They were like one of those bubble teams that, like, if Pittsburgh or Washington fall off this year, which they have so far, if one of those teams falls off, who's going to jump in their place? Who's that young up-and-coming team that has a chance to do that? The Senators were right there in the mix. They're one of the more exciting teams in the league. I think there's no reason to take this team lightly. Out of all the teams that are, like, in the bottom tier of the NHL, like, when you look at the standings right now, they are amongst the lowest in the league. So I'm looking, they're in 29th place right now. The only teams below them are the Arizona Coyotes, Columbus Blue Jackets, and Anaheim Ducks. Out of all those teams, Ottawa's the best by far. There are even teams ahead of them, like Buffalo, San Jose, Vancouver, Chicago. Then that's probably where I would draw the line. I think Ottawa's better than all those teams. If I'm taking a 7-game series between the Blackhawks and the Senators, the Blackhawks had a nice start, but I think the Senators would probably prevail in a 7-game series against them. Even if you look up the list a little bit, Philly, Montreal, kind of overcoached a little bit, kind of over-exceeding expectations so far. I think Ottawa's just as good as teams like that, and they've had a little bit of tough luck. They're 6-9-1. They're the only team from, if you look at the NHL standings and you go from 19 to 32, only one team has a positive goal differential, and that's the Ottawa Senators. So it's not like this is going to be a cakewalk by any means. I do think if the Devils play their game, they can beat anybody. We've seen it. They beat the defending Stanley Cup champion Colorado Avalanche 1-0. If they play their game against a team like the Senators, who have struggled at times this year, you should see guys like Nico Hischier and Jack Hughes and Jesper Bratt be able to do their thing in the offensive zone. As long as we see guys like Graves, Siegenthaler, and Marino do their thing defensively, and you get a save here and there, you have a chance to win the game.
Yeah, you have a chance to win the game. And by the way, awesome Dawson Mercer, 100th career game being played today. It was a young career. Who would ever thought that draft picked by Tom Fitzgerald, 18th overall, coming via the Taylor Hall trade from Arizona, would be an awesome pickup. 100 career games, playing every single game in the NHL level. That's pretty impressive. 4 goals, 4 assists, -1 on the season, but very impressive, very consistent Dawson Mercer.
Yeah, I'm very happy with everything that's happened with Dawson Mercer. I can't remember the last time a prospect like this came up with the Devils unexpectedly, right? Because out of him and Alexander Holtz, we would have thought Alexander Holtz would be doing what Dawson Mercer is doing right now. And he hasn't missed a game. He's about to play 100 games out of 100. He made it through the second half of the COVID-19 pandemic without missing a single game. And it hit the Devils harder than I'm trying to think of teams that it hit harder last year than the Devils. I would say it impacted every Canadian
Islanders.
team.
Islanders.
The Islanders are up
yeah.
there. Every Canadian team, because of their policies in Canada being different than the United States. And then the Boston Bruins, I remember, got absolutely destroyed too. They were dressing like 12 forwards. Or, no, you always dress 12 forwards. There was a game where they dressed 10 forwards and 5 defensemen, and they were just like, this is what we have to do because of the rules. So hopefully that part is in the past. But for Dawson Mercer to make it all the way through, it's honestly phenomenal.
It is phenomenal. The only player that I remember on the New Jersey Devils that came out right out of the gate, probably Travis Zajac. I don't think he played any time in the minors other than rehab, if he even did at all.
Yeah, that's probably actually a good comparable. There was the one year I remember Zajac missed almost the whole season, but then he came back in time for the playoffs.
Yeah, I'm talking about starting a career in the NHL.
Yeah,
I'm talking about
for sure.
just making a big jump.
I'm extending the conversation though, like saying like that guy stayed
Scott
healthy
Gomez?
for a majority of his career. Yeah, Scott Gomez too, exactly.
I think Scott Gomez, played all 82 games, if I'm not mistaken, when he came out drafted. I remember they had Lou Lamoriello back then had 2 back-to-back picks. One was I think it was Mike Van Ryn, a defenseman who wouldn't sign. Like he had the leverage, or Van Ryn, and Scott Gomez. And it turned out that Scott Gomez was the Rookie of the Year. Calder wins the Cup. I mean, his first 2 seasons in the NHL, was that like 2 Stanley Cup finals to start? I mean, that's just amazing.
Yeah, I always feel, in a way, I don't feel bad. Obviously, that's how they would want it. But when guys start a career like that, like you win the Calder Trophy, you win the Cup once, you win it, you make it there a second time, and then the rest of your career, that just can't live up to those first 2 years. Like, you can't get better than that. Like, I think the goalie the Devils just beat in the Toronto Maple Leafs, Matt Murray, he won the Stanley Cup in his first 2 years in the NHL. Yeah. And then everything has just been like downhill since. And
it's hard to keep up.
Same trajectory. Exactly. So,
do you remember a basketball player? Do you remember basketball player Sam Cassell? His rookie season was, I believe, the 93-94 Houston Rockets, and the first 2 seasons in the NBA as a no-name, whatever, rookie, which he had a big part of those teams. He wins an NBA championship twice. Some players just get it lucky, just right place at the right time.
Yeah, I mean, look at a guy like Miguel Sergachev, right? Or Mikhail Sergachev. He gets traded from Montreal to Tampa Bay for Drouin. Both of them are incredibly gifted, talented players. Drouin goes to Montreal, who has the one lucky run to the Cup with Montreal during the COVID year. But then Sergachev is a 2-time Stanley Cup champion, multiple-time Eastern Conference champion. He got traded into that situation. And all he had to do to get there was make it to the NHL and luck into a situation like that. And he played well. He was on the team for a reason. A 2-time Cup champion team wanted a guy like that for a reason. But, stuff like that happens in the league. If the Devils won the lottery in 2020 and they got Lafreniere, would Lafreniere be much more successful right now than he has been with the New York Rangers? I would venture to say yes. Capo Caco, I'm not too sure on. He might have struggled with the Devils too, because there's issues with his game that I see opposed to Jack Hughes. But, when it comes to a guy as supremely talented like that, sometimes your situation is so key. If Taves and Kane were drafted by the Blackhawks in 1999, would they be Hall of Famers like they are today? I'm not sure. The organizations are just in different places at different time. If Tom Brady was drafted by the Chicago Bears, he would have stunk. So there are just so many times where situation is key. You have to, as a player, do your best to be put in the best situation, but Dawson Mercer seems to be fitting in quite nicely.
Yeah, and you know what? It's amazing. Dawson Mercer, the amount of games that he's played, but Alexander Holtz still remains on the sideline. Again, it's not a knock on Holtz. Some players are late bloomers. Some players just get it right away. It's not to say that Holtz's upside is not, is under Dawson Mercer. It's just some players take a bit of time to get acclimated with the NHL. So, but then you have Muhammad Doolin in that draft, and he's the kind of like the wild card there, because could have Tom Fitzgerald done better? Who knows? But that's, to me, I think that's his MO, that if he has multiple draft picks, he'll have the surefire safe ones, but the other ones he'll take a gamble on, which I'm okay with that. You got to take risks with your scouting.
I'm okay with that too. If Muhammad Doolin is a bust, is it really that big of a deal? Like, I mean, it would suck. They could have had other players instead.
Well, they traded Blake Coleman, a fan favorite, to get that pick, via Vancouver through Tampa Bay. But, again, you win some, you lose some, right? They won with Jesper Bratt.
Making an impact, though?
What's that?
Can Nolan Foote end up making an impact, though? He was part of that trade.
Yeah, he was part of that trade, but right now I don't see him on the roster. Yeah,
so it's hard. There's a lot
it's very hard to really, gauge this. But I know one thing. The Taylor Hall, that was all manufactured by Ray Shero. That trade and what's come of it since is probably something we would keep track of for the next 25 years. What player went where, who knows? Dawson Mercer could be traded 10 years from now, and that could be a first overall pick of a generational player, all thanks to Taylor Hall, which,
That trade tree is going to live on for a long time, and the only stem that's still going is the Devils.
Yeah.
Because Hall left Arizona for Buffalo.
Yeah.
Then they traded him to the Bruins. The Bruins signed him to a long-term extension. So that stem is dead with Arizona, Boston, and Buffalo. Edmonton, they got Adam Larson. He's with the Kraken now. And then the Devils, that still lives on. If the Devils haven't won 11 games in a row, Kevin Ball would have played by now. They keep running out the same guys as long as they're healthy because it's been working. Like, why would you change the lineup? I know Brendan Smith is he's been okay. If that, he's definitely the last man on the roster right now, at least in the starting lineup. But
it keeps those guys fresh for now because it is a long season. But, it's almost like that 6 degree separation. Like, you could go back to, well, how did the Devils get Taylor Hall? Well, they had Adam Larson. How did they get Adam Larson? Well, Johnny McLean, was hired and had that debacle of a season where the Devils got the 4th overall pick. Well, how did they get Johnny McLean? He was a former Devil. How did, you could go on and on and on with it. But the bottom line is Ray Shero manufactured that tree that's just going to keep on giving for many years to come. But seeing all the comments on the YouTube live, Bacha Galoop saying stuff. Dave Singer says, Ranger fan 69 Mega is back. Yes, I took care of that spammer. We have spammers now as we're over 1,000 subscriptions in the YouTube live. Want to say hello to the Facebook livers, our old Facebook livers and Twitter livers, and we've got a lot of people on for this pregame podcast on a beautiful Saturday afternoon. It's noon time right now. It's about 12:22 p.m. Eastern, 11:22 a.m. Central Time. But Vinny, it was kind of tough going through the betstamp.app, our official sponsor of sports betting. Betstamp.app, and I'm favoring the Devils to win, but the money line doesn't look very good.
Yeah, it was nice getting the Devils as an underdog in their last game. Like, I don't know what the books were thinking, making them that much of a. I mean, they weren't that much of an underdog against the Maple Leafs. They were plus 120, which is, and the Maple Leafs were like minus 110 or something like that. So it wasn't that big of a difference, but they've won at that point 10 in a row. Now it's 11 in a row. Now they're playing a bad team. There's actually value on Ottawa if you think the Ottawa Senators are going to end the streak today. But I'm not going in that direction. I went to the betstamp.app this morning. And listen, it's hard on a day game, in my opinion, because of the fact that I kind of feel like informationless. I have no clue who's starting for the Devils. I'm assuming it's Vitek Vanacek. But things are always just a tad bit different when you go in the morning. You're not seeing practice rushes hours ahead of the game, stuff like that. So that does impact betting a little bit for me. But I actually think the Devils are going to score 7 goals today and beat the Ottawa Senators 7-4. I found on the DraftKings Sportsbook via the BetStamp app. Thank you, betstamp.app. Devils minus 150.
Wow. I found PointsBet minus 125. I'm picking the Devils to win, but just one less goal than you, Vinny. I'm predicting 6-4 victory. I think there's going to be an empty netter there.
Yeah, we both have Ottawa getting a couple goals today. They're fast. They're at home. It's a day game. Things don't go always the way you plan in a day game, it seems like. So I kind of like that we're both there with Ottawa chipping in a little offense today.
Yeah, I mean, you know what the Devils need to do? This is what the Devils need to do. And we know that they listen to this podcast, right? They listen to the podcast. Do you hear that static or no? We're in beta version. It's okay. All right. So you don't hear it static. All right. So this is what the Devils should do. Because in the sports betting world, we don't know who the goaltenders are. And I'm trying to place my bet before the game. I need that information of what's the starting lineup. So what they should do is monetize on it with one of their sports bet partners. I don't know if this is legal or not. And give us the lineup at 6, an hour prior so we can make our bets instead of having to guess.
I think a lot of baseball teams do that where all of their starting lineups being announced on social media is brought to you by X Sportsbook. I'm pretty sure the White Sox, every time they announce their starting lineup every day, it's they put the lineup and then they put the over-under odds and the money line of the game based on their betting sponsor. I think it's FanDuel. So I don't see why hockey wouldn't do something like that, but hockey is so old school boys club when it comes to announcing the starting line, even within upper body injury, lower body injury. We've been dealing this crap for 100 years.
I'm telling you, I want inside information that's available to the public, so to speak. It sounds like an oxymoron, but I want to know who's starting in net because we're predicting these scores. We don't even know who's in net. We're just making assumptions. Not cool. But hey, that's me. Betstamp.app. Download it today. Yeah, I think we're going to make some money. Not much, but we're going to make some money.
We've made money on 11 straight games, so let's make it 12.
Yeah, it's better than the other way around like it had been for many years with this team.
Literally.
Yeah.
I mean, this team's been disgusting for 10 years other than one, and even in that one, we all knew deep down inside, is Hall going to have an MVP season every single year? No, is he even going to stay? We don't know. This time around, it's Jack Hughes and Nico Hischier are locked up to long-term contracts far below what they would get on the open market right now. Hischier is a bargain. Hughes is a bargain. They'd each get $10 million on the open free world. So enjoy it while you can. Luke Hughes is on the way too. That doesn't stink either. The fact that they're going to get better because of a guy like Luke Hughes and Nemec and, potentially another draft. What if Holtz all of a sudden figures it out? There's so much to be excited about. I can't remember the last time the future was like this.
Yeah, Bachagaloop says 4-2 Devils. Christopher, two-time winner of our contest. We have the Christopher rule now. Anyway, 4-3 Ottawa, thinking that the streak will come to an end, but hopes he's wrong. Well, I'm glad that you hope that you're wrong, but he could be right. If the Devils come out flat, they're going to have problems. And
I will say this.
What's that?
I saw the tweet from Bill. If the Devils win today, they will be the first team in NHL history to sweep the Western Canada road trip, Calgary, Edmonton, Vancouver, and the Eastern Canadian road trip, Toronto, Montreal, Ottawa, in the same season.
So Ottawa's basically, and how fitting it is, the capital city of Canada, which is located in Ontario. I get it, folks. Not Quebec, but Ontario. Yes, we do make geographical mistakes here on the podcast. And the only reason I told this story on the Woo Report yesterday, Vinny, that the only reason why I made that mistake is I always thought that Ottawa was in Ontario, but when I went in 2012 NHL All-Star game, every person in Ottawa was speaking French, so I just assumed.
I was just going to say that.
Yeah, they're bilingual
French,
there. Yeah.
I mean,
Look, when I hear bonjour, bonjour, bonjour through the All-Star game, I assume that it's French. And they're doing the dual language anthems. I assume it's French. Okay? Podcast hosts make mistakes, And now that 69 mega is now spamming again. Jerk. Instead of saying it's that, I'm just going to say it's hate speech. Graphic. I'm reporting right now.
Yeah. I mean, I don't blame you seeing some of these comments.
Schmid is starting. It's not Schmid. It's Schmid. According to. Well, so I forgot who it was. I think it was Matt Lachlan. I believe so.
Yeah, I did hear that. Okay, Akira Schmid. We will get that right going forward. Yeah, he's the starter. I see this tweet from Amanda Stein right now. Vitek Vanacek gets the afternoon off and will back up. So they did that against a lower-ranked team last Saturday, the Arizona Coyotes. Now this Saturday, they're hoping for some good results from Schmid in the early going of this game. So,
well, it's always nice that you have your backup goaltender playing against the last-place team. It means your team is doing well. It really does. It means your team is doing well. And Schmid, for all intents and purposes, bailed the Devils out when he made those point-blank saves in overtime to keep the streak going, folks. So I'm not too concerned about it. But again, it's like when you do these, when it comes to sports betting and you put your money where your mouth is, I kind of want to have that information just a little bit sooner. That's just me, and I'd be willing to pay for it.
Absolutely.
David Singer says end rushes all game long. Ramona Rice says, let's go Devils. Ramona Rice, how are you? Give me your predictions, because you're always right. Before we go, give me your predictions, Ramona. Vinny, any last words?
I would love to see this team make it to 12 straight games, and then you could go into next week with a fresh perspective. And, you have I think it's 2 more games before Thanksgiving after today. If you're in a playoff spot on American Thanksgiving, you have a 78% chance of making the playoffs, I think is the historical statistic. So let's have a strong week.
Okay. Donnell Weaver says, I will tell you guys I got the Devils reverse retro jersey on Thursday, and I got on the Adidas website, size 56, and will say does look good in person. Thank you, Donnell, for your commentary, because that jersey is pretty sweet. 5-1 Devils. Holla gets one, according to Ramona Rice. Okay, now we can end the podcast now that Ramona has got her predictions in, because I you know what? Ramona from Kentucky, avid listener of the Let's Go Devils podcast, loyal listener. I respect her predictions, Vinny, because 9 out of 10 times she's pretty close or right. So I like to use her as kind of a reference to my, crappy predictions and, all that kind of jazz.
I love it. Hopefully she's right this time around.
Yeah, hopefully, because that means it's a Devils victory. And that's what we're hoping for. Buzzing for a dozen. Kind of like cruising for a bruising. Trying to get some of that Walt Clyde Frazier, jive lingo to the podcast. Swishing and dishing. Thriving and diving like Sidney Crosby. Anyway.
Yeah, we're going to have to come up with one for 13.
Yeah. Want to thank all those listening in, dropping the podcast after this podcast is over on our podcast pages. Devils After Dark, after the game, Scotty of Sirius XM, Liquid Metal, and I will recap the game that was. So long, Vinny. Enjoy the game, everybody. Till next time, this is Game Day Live. Let's go, Devils.